Hello people, and welcome to our July wrap up, which is crazy that we've been through July already. I kind of hate that actually, but we are in July and there's no use denying it. August. First of all, I'd like to say I did finish my July TBR, and there are fireworks going off about this because it is a monumental occasion. It's because I decided to use fireworks for July as my pictures and stuff like that. I ended up reading 25 books this month for a year total of 148 books, which is insane, I know, but hear me out. I listen to audiobooks at work 90% of the time. I think on Goodreads, Fable, and Storygraph. On Storygraph, in my little thing where I can say what version I'm reading, I think I have about 48% of the books that I've read so far this year have been an audiobook. So about half the books that I read have been an audiobook. But I did read quite a few physical books this year, which I'm very proud of. So we read 20 new books this month. I had 5 reread books. And of the 5 stars I got this month, 8 of them were new books and 2 of them were rereads. So the very first book that I read this month was If the Boot Fits, which is the second book in the Texas Ever After series by Karen Whitmire. And I ended up rating this one 2.75 stars because it was just, I wrote down, it says boring and also everything resolves so quickly. And that's because this book was a Cinderella retelling, but it was set in the old Western kind of cowboys kind of an era. Actually, I shouldn't do that. I've taken to messing with my bracelet when I'm thinking and it's too loud. I can't do that on camera. It's in the old Texas kind of Western cowboy era, and I read the first book in June, and I read the second one because I was gonna read the third book, and then I just decided after the second one I don't want to because I didn't rate any of them very high, and I just was like, I don't want to waste my time reading a third one. So I ended up rating it pretty low because it was just boring. So the first one was interesting because it had such a weird premise, and so even though it was kind of boring, it had a zany of premise to keep me going, even though I was annoyed the whole time. But this book was just boring because there was one thing that I thought was going to be the main problem during the whole thing, and it wasn't. It got resolved within the first 50-ish pages, and so I was like, okay, then what's the problem? And so she just keeps introducing new problems, and she does a pretty good job of showing what the real problem is the whole time, but you don't really tell, and then it just kind of is all let out at the end, and you're like, oh, that's a problem? I wasn't certain that was a problem. Anyway, so it felt like she had something she wanted to be really high stakes, but it felt really low stakes because it didn't feel like the real plot of the book. I don't know. It was, I say if you like Christian fiction, those ones are decent for Christian fiction, but they weren't fantastic. Then I decided to read The Summer I Turned Pretty, the first book. Actually, I read the whole series, but the first book I ended up reading at 3 stars. These books have swearing and alcohol in them, by the way, and underage drug use, which is not my favorite, by the way, but I was doing a reread. Anyway, I'm watching the series, and this is my guilty pleasure show. Anyway, so this is the first book in The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. Ended up rating it 3 stars this go around because Belly, the shows are better. I'm just gonna say this, the show is better. The books do a very good job at showing what the characters are doing in the show, but I use them as kind of research analysis so I can watch the show and understand it better. I don't really love the books, but it was fine. And then I reread the second book, which was It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han, the second book in the series, and I rated that with 2.75 stars. Again, swearing and alcohol usage. It wasn't great. I didn't really love it, but I loved it way less than the TV show. Oh, I should kind of tell you the premise if you haven't heard of this. I don't know how you couldn't have heard of this. It's everywhere right now. But The Summer I Turned Pretty has Belly. She's the main character, and she always goes to this beach house in Cousins Beach with her mom's best friend and her mom's best friend's sons, Conrad and Jeremiah. And so, of course, she's in love with Conrad, always. But then there's that what if she likes Jeremiah now? So it's this love triangle between 2 brothers, and it plays out through 3 books. And the second book I don't love as much because in the show, it actually kind of gives it a plot. I know people don't love the second series, but I like it better because it actually kind of gives it a plot and you can see what Belly is thinking, where in the book, it's just kind of what are you doing, girl? What are you doing? And it was kind of insufferable. And then We'll Always Have Summer, the third book by Jenny Han, ended up rating that one 4 stars because I actually really liked seeing her progression mentally through the series. It was so cool to see her kind of grow up. And yeah, she made stupid decisions, but she was hurting and they went through a huge loss. And also swearing and alcohol for the last book. This whole series, trigger warning for swearing, alcohol, it's not stuff that I would give to my younger sister. But I am so obsessed and I'm so excited to keep watching the series as it keeps coming out, which it's not the best series in the world, but it is. My goodness, Conrad. He's really smoldering this season. I put powder on my face and I'm allergic to the world right now, and so it's making me so stuffy and it's driving me crazy. So then the next book that I read this month was Fade Away by E.B. Vickers. I ended up rating this one 4.5 stars. And it was not what I was expecting. This book does have swearing, addiction, and drug usage by minors, and just drugs are not good to do. Anyway, it was not what I was expecting it to be. I thought this was going to be a thriller with like kidnapping and maybe supernatural stuff, and it was nothing like that. It ended up being a book to teach people a good lesson, which is not what I expected when I was going into it. And so I ended up rating it 4.5 stars because it was good for what it was. It wasn't what I was expecting, and I kind of had that like gap in between my expectations versus reality. And it also was like, it was weird because I think it was supposed to have a Christian under theming, but it didn't really. And then it also had swearing in it, which I know this author is normally like a very clean author, so that kind of caught me off guard. And it just, I don't know, it was weird. It was fine, but it was weird. I didn't really know how to feel about this book. I don't think I'd recommend it, but I wouldn't not recommend it. But I wouldn't go in thinking it was a thriller. It kind of uses a thriller setup, I guess. Okay, whatever. So it starts with, what's his name? Jake Foster. He's at a basketball game, and then everyone goes to the party after the basketball game, and then no one knows where he went. He just disappears. And so it kind of has this thriller setup as like, where did he been? And you have like the police interviewing people, and you see the police interviews, and you go to different characters' point of views, and you try to see, like, you try to figure it out as the reader, like figure out what's going on and what the plot is. And about halfway through, you basically figure it out, and then you're just figuring out how you get to that point. And it kind of has this really like scary at the beginning, and then as you figure it out, it kind of, the fear goes away, whereas the thriller, it kind of keeps going. So it has a very different plot as to what I expected it to have, but it was good, and I was kind of glad I wasn't terrified the whole time. But I also, I don't know, yeah, it was good. It was good for what it was, but it wasn't what I was expecting. I guess I said that 5 times now. Then I listened to The Invention of Sophie Carter by Samantha Hastings, and ended up rating this one 2.5 stars. This one was a story of kind of Parent Trap, as it was one of those stories where you have the swapping of the two people. So like either one person has to pretend to be two people, but this one, it was two twins pretending to be one person, because Sophie Carter wants to go to London and she wants to show off and become an inventor. So she wants to go to the World's Fair, I think. And they're orphans, and they were left in the care of their father's friend. Anyway, they end up being in this bad situation, so they decide to take their aunt's offer to go to London, but she only offers it to one of the twins. She doesn't offer to both of them. So she decides to take the offer for one of the twins, but they decide to pretend to be the one twin. So they're like sneaking around, being in the same room, all that stuff. And both of them fall in love, and it's like a love story kind of a thing. And the thing was, it was so predictable. I rated it 2.5 stars because that's exactly what it was for me. Middle of the road. Like, I had no idea whether I hated it or whether I loved it. There were some things that were really cute. There were some things that I didn't love very much. I wouldn't not recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It was, I don't know, it was weird. It had like the sisters fall in love so quickly. Like, basically the first people that they meet are the people that they fall in love with, which always gets on my nerves. I like having some sort of interest and intrigue. Like, normally you know who the main character is in the love in like the books, because it makes, like, they kind of cue it in, especially if it's the dual POV. Like, you know who they're gonna fall in love with. But it always drives me crazy when it's dual POV and they fall in love immediately. But it was worse in this one because it was so obvious who the person was. I think I've decided I like Samantha Hastings' writing, but I like her more recent books more. I've been trying to read her backlist because I really liked 3 of the recent books that I read by her. They were really good, but her backlist, like, she's really progressed as a writer, I guess. And so I recommend her newer books, but not so much her older stuff. Then I finally finished the Emily series by Ella Montgomery, and I read the second one, Emily Climbs, 5 stars obviously, and I read the third one, Emily's Quest, 5 stars. So these were rereads. I read them a long time ago. I don't think I've reread them in a while, but it was so funny as I was reading them because like lines and just like things just would stick out at me, like, oh yeah, I remember that line, oh I remember this plot, and it just would like come back to me. Like, some part of my soul lives in these books. I love Ella Montgomery. I think I've read almost everything she's ever written. There might be a few like short stories that I haven't been able to get my hands on, but I love her books. They're so beautiful and wonderful, and they just make me happy. Anyway, I really recommend this series. I can't really tell you what happens in these ones because, well, I guess I can. In this one, she ends up going to college, and in this one, it's her as she like gets older and has to deal with love and heartbreak and trying to become a writer and that sort of a thing. I love both of these. There is a super frustrating, annoying character in this one. Well, in the whole series, actually, that really gets on your nerves. But the love story still remains so good and pure and lovely, and it makes me happy. But the main character definitely has flaws, which what main character doesn't? Actually, some of them, and that drives me crazy. Anyway, I really recommend this series. It is just as good as Anne of Green Gables, and I love them, and I think I need to put them into my rereading rotation, because I normally reread Anne of Green Gables like very often, normally every spring, but I decided to read these this spring. So then I picked up Five Survive by Holly Jackson, and I ended up rating this one at 2 stars. It has swearing, like gruesome blood, death, murder, kidnapping. I don't think this one has drugs. It just was not my vibe. I wanted to read a book by her because she's really popular, Holly Jackson is, but it's just not. I think I need my framing to be down a little more. Sorry, I just realized I'm in the weird center of the screen. Anyway, I just realized I didn't love her books. I might like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder better. I just didn't love the way that this one was set up. I don't think I'm a person who enjoys murder. Like, I've read a couple thrillers. I've read ones that are more tame. I've read ones that have just like kidnapping, and I think I'm fine more with kidnapping. I just don't like murder. It doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make me interested. So I would recommend this if you like thrillers maybe. But also, I have read so many mysteries in my life that the mystery didn't catch me. Like, I wasn't like, oh, what's gonna happen next? I was just like, yep, things are happening. I was more worried that they were gonna get out of this alive rather than like caught up with the mystery of it all. The ending was very interesting. I did like the ending. It ended in a way I didn't think it was going to, but I don't know. I don't know if I recommend that one. Now we start the actual good books I read this month. So I read The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon Volume 4, and at the time I did not own the physical copy, which I'll get to why that happened at the end of telling you about the books I read. But I ended up picking this one up this month on Kindle Unlimited because I got Kindle Unlimited to read The Summer I Turned Pretty, and I ended up figuring out that this entire series was on there for free, and I was so excited. Anyway, 5 stars, obviously. So good. Love this series. I don't even know if I can tell you what happens in this book because it just, like, if I tell you anything, it kind of ruins something in a previous book. But Emma M. Lyon is written in an epistolary journal writing. So it follows Emma's, because it's called The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. So it's her journals as her, like, life goes on. So she used to live at her aunt, she calls her Aunt Mathilde's house because she's an orphan and her father died. And her father left her Lapis Lazuli house, which is her house, which she gets to inherit when she turns 21, which is her majority. And she, I think at the point in this one, she was like, yeah, she was about 6 months away from turning 21, and it follows her as she lives in St. Crispin's, which is where Lapis Lazuli is, and she makes friends, and it's wonderful. I love the series. I can't even like tell you why I love it so much because if I tell you anything, it ruins something that happens. But just please pick up the first one. And if you don't love the first one, pick up the second one. And if you don't love the second one, pick up the third because they're really short, like really short, up until about, you know, the 5th book, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, I love these books. They're literally my new favorite series in the entire world, but we'll get to ranting about that in a little bit later because the last book I read that was like spooky this month was Beauty and the Clockwork Beast by Nancy Campbell Allen, and this one surprised me. I gave it 4.75 stars. I didn't quite give it 5 because there was a couple clunky scenes that just like felt like they didn't really fit, but I did really like it. I like the world building. This one follows a girl who ends up going to her sister's house because her sister married a guy whose brother is like known in society to be kind of creepy. His wife died and then his sister died very quickly in quick succession, and so people are like, oh, what's going on there? And so she ends up going to help her sister because her sister's like, hey, my house is haunted, like I know there's a ghost, and also I'm sick, like I'm so sick and I can't get better and I don't know why. And so she's going to go help her sister get better because I think she's a research scientist, but she knows a lot of medical stuff too because of what she's doing. And this world has vampires, it has werewolves, except they call them wolf shifters and fox shifters. Like I think there's different things that you can shift into, and there's also vampires, and it is very interesting. I really like the world building. I want to pick up the rest of the books in the series because she does have 2 or 3 more, and I liked it quite a lot. The cover, I picked it up because the cover was so funny, but also the cover really represents what happens in the book, which is funny. I liked that book. I definitely recommend that one. I decided that I could not live without consuming the entirety of the rest of the Emma M. Lyon series. So I read volume 4, 5 stars, volume 5, 5 stars, volume 6, 5 stars, volume 7? Oh, wait. I already told you volume 4. Volume 7 and 8, 5 stars. So good. And as the series goes on, it does get quite a bit thicker, but by this point you want a book this big. You want it to be this big. I wanted this book to be 70,000 pages long because I'm so sad that the series is over. You can't tell by the amount of books that I read this month, but I was in such a book slump because I read these books like the first week of July or the second week or something like that. And so after I finished this series, I was like, what do I do with my life? Like there's nothing. I can't do anything. There's no more in this series. Like I was crashing out. There was nothing for me to do. Like I had to finish the series. And then when I was done, there was no more series and I was so depressed and there was nothing for me to read. And I'm still feeling that way actually. Like I still have this like ache in my chest where Emma and Lion goes and I want to pick it up and start a reread, but I told myself I can't do that until we have a confirmed release date for the 9th book, and I can't read it until then because I will crash out again if I read this whole series and there's nothing more at the end of it. Like I love this series. I love the found family. I love the friendship. I love Emma. I love her family. I love London, the London she lives in, because there's kind of like this mystical, ghosty aspect. It's like not real London. To me, it has an aspect of mystery and magic to it, but it's not like confirmed, obviously. It just is so good. I need more of Emma in my veins, and I can't because there's no more. I don't know when the 9th book is coming out. I want it so badly. The later books have slight language. There's one character that swears, but it's because he has a very traumatic past and he goes through war and all that stuff. So it's like, I understand why you swear. Makes sense to me, but there is slight language. There's nothing more. It's not bad. It's not huge swearing, but there is a little bit. And then in the last book, there is mention of child abuse. So bear that as you will, but I love this series. I need more. And if you haven't read it, I deeply, highly, with my entire soul recommend reading this series because it will be your new favorite thing. This is my favorite series. Like all of them are 6-star. Like the next book, I know it's gonna be a 5-star book because it is Emma M. Lyon and Beth Brower wrote it. So can you tell I'm kind of sad that series is over? So then I was in a huge book slump and I just like didn't really know what to read, and so I ended up reading The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith because I also needed to use up the rest of my Audible credit things. So I ended up, not Audible, sorry, my Spotify hours, that's the word. I needed to use the rest of my Spotify hours. So I ended up reading it 2 stars. The Rose Bargain was interesting. It had kind of, the premise is you have Regency era London or something like that, where you have the balls and you have the marriage mart where you dress up the daughters and you want to make them look presentable and they have to have like all these things that they do. And in this one, London is ruled by a fae queen where she gives you a choice to choose any boon that you want from her, and she will give you that boon in exchange for something. So you make a bargain with her, and that's why it's called the Rose Bargain. So in this book, she goes to do her rose bargain, to bargain something for something, and the bargains are always terrible. Like you wish for piano lessons and you have to give up your fingernails, and you wish, not piano, you wish for like impeccable piano-ness and you give up your fingernails, or her mother wished to remember everything so she wouldn't like forget names and stuff like that, and she gave up, I think, her pinky finger or something like that. So it's like really kind of gruesome stuff that you end up having to do. So in this book, she ends up going to do her rose bargain, but instead of the normal marriage mart, the queen announces that there is going to be a special thing this year where her son is going to get married, and so she's going to have the option, if you want to, you can enter a contest to marry her son. And so there's trials and all this stuff, and people have compared it to Powerless, and I understand why. It wasn't quite Powerless. It's much more low stakes. The trials are not as big of an aspect as other books. I didn't go in thinking they were, and I'm glad I didn't. I didn't love it because it randomly had so much modern day swearing and slang in it, and that kind of got on my nerves. It normally doesn't get on my nerves, but it did this time. I don't know. I don't even really know why I didn't like it. I was really enjoying it the first half, and then just something turned my brain and I was like, nope, I don't like this anymore. So I would say I recommend it, but I don't really. Also, I think there might be sun shining on my camera soon. We'll see. I might have to adjust my setup. Anyway, that one book has swearing, violence, gore, and death, and I recommend it if you don't mind that stuff. but I did. So then I finally ended up reading, I read Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson, and I ended up reading it 5 stars. That book is basically the novella Sixth of the Dusk. Yeah, Sixth of the Dusk, if it was a big story. So he took that novella and expanded it. The novella actually does take place in that book. He uses it as flashbacks. So if you haven't read the novella, you don't need to read it before going to that book, because he includes it in the book. And I really enjoyed it. I liked it quite a lot. It wasn't quite as high stakes as other Cosmere books, but it was very fun. I do think it was kind of like that palette shift that I needed to kind of like feel better, because it was a very good book. I ended up really liking Dusk. If you don't know, that takes place in a world where in the Cosmere there's different powers that are vying to have power in the universe. And so they have the Rosharans and you have the people who live on Mistborn. I forgot their name. And they both want to take control of this planet because the planet has these birds that give you powers. So if they bond with you, they can give you the gifts that the birds can give you. And so it follows this world trying not to get taken by these powers, like taken over by the powers. And Six of the Dusk goes on a journey to figure out how to save the world. And it is very interesting, but it feels so low stakes for the Cosmere because you've seen these huge, gigantic things. And this one was just like huge and gigantic for the world, sure, but it felt small, medium-ish in like the worlds of the entire world. And this play takes place farther in the Cosmere than we're in at the moment. And there's some interesting ideas that he brings up, like, oh, we're going to talk about this later, but we're not going to talk about it right now because it's going to have spoilers. And it was very fun. It felt very teasery. I liked it a lot. And it also is kind of, the Cosmere is going to shift into more like science fiction fantasy, which is very interesting to see in this book because it uses the fantasy and like magic powers in more of a science fiction way with like spaceships and space travel, and you have technology, and it's interesting. I really liked it. I would definitely highly recommend to read any other book before that book because it will not make sense within the wider Cosmere. If that's your first Cosmere book that you read, I would recommend picking up, like, people say Mistborn first, but I refer to Elantris because Elantris was the first book I read, and it's a standalone. You can read it and understand. It has a full like arc. It does have a second book that's going to come out at some point, but you can read just that book and understand what's going on. I really enjoy Elantris. So and also I wrote down it is a better Moana story than Moana is. All right, then I ended up picking up The Silent Shield by Jeff Wheeler. This was the 5th book in the King Fountain series, and I decided I just wanted to finish the series because I was on a roll. So I picked up The Silent Shield, ended up rating this one 4.75 stars because this one did feel a whole lot more like he was just kind of adding fluff to the book because he knew what he wanted to write, and that was this book. And so he just needed the events of this book to happen at the end so he could write this book. But it was still good. It was a good book. It just wasn't quite as great as the other books in the series maybe, but I did really enjoy it. I can't really tell you anything that happens because it'll spoil something, but it takes place in a world where they have magic. They call it fountain magic, and where people are fountain blessed with powers, and everyone has like a slightly different power if they're blessed. Not everyone is. Our main character is, obviously, and it follows her as she's basically trying to save the kingdom from this huge overarching threat of someone coming in and conquering them, and she's like, I don't want y'all to conquer me. And it's very interesting. I very much liked the way that they ended this book. It set up very well for the next book, which I don't think I read yet. Yeah, I hadn't read that one quite yet. So the next book I ended up picking up was Wings of Starlight by Alison Saft. Ended up reading this one 2 stars. Can you see how I was feeling? I'd read like a really great book and then I'd read like a medium book. So this one I ended up reading 2 stars because it just was so disappointing. So this one was based on, I think, a character that ends up showing up in a Disney movie, like a Disney Fairies movie. And I didn't ever watch that movie. So I think I might have enjoyed it a little bit more if I had watched the movie before. But it was like a prequel to the movie. So it followed Queen Clarion as she's growing up and getting used to being a queen, and she's about to be coronated. There's this huge gigantic monster that comes from, so Pixie Hollow is set up with spring, summer, winter, and fall, all the seasons, and you have the fairies that stay in their seasons, and the warm seasons can't really go into winter because they will freeze to death, and winter can't go into the warm seasons because they will melt. So the fairies are kind of separated because of their actual like physical characteristics that can't handle going into the other places. So there is this huge gigantic monster that comes out of winter and starts ravaging through all the warm seasons, and the queen is like, what do we do? I don't know. And Clarion's like, I don't know what we do, but so Clarion decides to go figure out how to fix it, and she meets basically like the king of winter, but it's not a king, it's like Duke, basically, in our language. I don't remember what they call him. He was like the guardian of winter. And he's like, hey, I don't know what's going on either, but there's some stuff in winter that maybe you could decipher. It's like a book. And so she's like, okay, I can help. So they kind of team up to try to figure out how to solve this gigantic problem. And it was so annoying because it was a TikTok romance book. And if you know what I mean, it's like the book where it's like, I like him, I don't like him. And there's no actual soul creation bindingness between them. It's just the surface level liking. There's no actual love between them that I felt. It just felt like they liked each other, and that was why they were in love. And anyway, it was so annoying because the ending was just like not out of the blue, because you kind of expected it, because apparently it's a prequel, and so they get together in a movie, so they can't get together in the book, obviously. But it just and the main problem was that it used language from the real world. Whereas, I think all the Disney fairy books might take place in their own separate canon of their own series, but the ones that I read earlier this year were by Gail Carson Levine, and I love her books. Also, I think it might be Gail Carson Levine, but I said Levine my whole life, so I don't know how to change my brain to say it correctly. Anyway, I read the books by her that were Pixie Dust and the Quest for the Egg, or something like that, and it followed like them going on quests to do other things, and it kind of had that same like really high stakes, but it's still like a fairy story, but it's high stakes, and it's kind of this interesting dichotomy. But it followed, it felt like it took place in Peter Pan, like it took place in the Peter Pan books, whereas this Wings of Starlight felt like it took place in its own canon where it wasn't quite as Pixie Hollow-y. So it felt like it used the Pixie Hollow trappings, but it didn't actually take place in Pixie Hollow because they didn't use the language, they didn't use like the characters that I knew, it didn't use like all this stuff that made it feel like Pixie Hollow. It felt weird to me. Didn't feel like my Pixie Hollow, and it made me mad. So anyway, yeah, it was a decent story. If you liked it, I'm glad you liked it, but I didn't, and I was kind of mad that I didn't like it. So then I ended up picking up The Forsaken Throne by Jeff Wheeler, and this was the final book in the King Fountain series, and I'm so glad I finished it because this book crosses over to another series that's my favorite series in the entire and I was so happy, and the ending is so good, and I was kind of mad with myself for not figuring out what was going to happen, but it was so good. I loved it. I can't even tell you what happens because it's going to spoil a huge part of this book. It was just so good. I really recommend it. Oh, my bookmark's still in here. I really recommend this book. It was so good. I really loved it. I loved our characters in this book. It was such a good ending. It was a very typical Jeff Wheeler ending where the entire world feels like it ends and it doesn't. It was beautiful, and I loved it. It was... I really recommend this series. It was wonderful. Oh yeah, 5 stars. Then I ended up picking up The Prophet of Yonwood by Jan Duprow. This is the 3rd book in like the City of Ember, in the City of Ember series. And it takes place about 100 years, 200 years, 300 years in the future to that series. And I can't even tell you what happens in the book because it will ruin a huge part of the first book where it's a really interesting mystery kind of in the first book. So I can't tell you what happens, but it was very good. I very much liked it. I liked our main character. I liked the plot. I liked the idea of it. It was so interesting. I loved this idea of everyone creating a fake religion. I can't even say any more than that. It was so good. I really liked it. I ended up rating it 4.5 stars because it was very good, but I didn't fall in love with the series, but I do really like that series. It's a solid like 4-star-ish series. I think I have maybe 1 book left in the series, and I want to finish it this year just so I can be like, oh, I finished the series, you know. And then, speaking of finishing series, I ended up picking up The Princess of Fairwood High by Nancy Norton. This is the 2nd book in the Homeroom series, and I basically picked it up because I found them at DI, and I decided that they looked cute, because they do look like cute covers, right? This was boring. The first book was dumb, but this was just boring. And it has such low stakes compared to the first book because the first book had like surprisingly high stakes at the end and this one didn't. And so I was just bored. So I ended up rating it 3 stars because it wasn't bad. It was just boring. So it follows the princess, because a princess from like Welsh something moves to this random town in the middle of nowhere and decides to go to school because she wants to go to high school. And so in this one, the rest of the class figures out that she's a princess and are like, you know what? We should make you prom queen because that sounds fun. And so it follows them basically trying to make this girl prom queen, and it was so boring. So boring. I don't recommend the series. It might be fun if I was like 12, but I'm not 12 anymore, so. Alright, the second to last book that I read this month was Baker's Magic by Diane Zoller. And I rated this one 4.25 stars because it was surprisingly dark. Like, it had this fairy tale setup, and then it was just so creepy out of nowhere. So it followed a girl who is a orphan who ends up going to a baker's house and living there, and he kind of like takes her under his wing, teaches her how to bake, and she figures out that she has magic, and then she has to go on a quest to save the kingdom with the princess. And it is so cute, and I loved the setup. There were some random parts where I just kind of like wasn't listening and I stopped caring, and then I jumped back in and something had happened. So I think it might have been me zoning out, but it kind of felt like it had random things that saved the day. Like she'd throw in a random problem and then a random thing would save the day, and it didn't feel like a problem that had been set up the whole time. But the plot was interesting. I liked how it ended. I liked the idea of the trees, and it was really cute. I think if I was like 16, I would have really loved this book, but as it was, I thought it was a very good book. Then the final book I read this month, thank goodness, because my voice starting to hurt, was Sam by Jack Wayland, and I rated this 1.75 stars because tell me why this was worse than the first book. Why was this worse than the first book? Because it was so bad. The messaging in this book was so bad, but it was funny. Like, he has genuinely funny dialogue. Like, I know why it was so popular back in the 80s or whenever it was, because it was so funny, but it has such bad messaging. Okay, so the first book, he marries this girl named Charlie, and it follows them in their relationship. And you know, like literally as the book begins, that Charlie's dead, so that's not a surprise. But Charlie dies, and this is him remarrying, basically. And it has a good setup. I have to give it that. But it was just, I'm just gonna spoil something. He ends up falling for this girl who is significantly smarter than him, and that bothers him on a deep soul level because he has to be the smart one in the relationship, and a smart woman intimidates him. And it's supposed to be like this feminist icon book where he ends up loving the smart girl, and she ends up being the person he needs. And it was so dumb because in the end, she still has to give up his dreams for him. She still has to give up her dreams for him. And that wouldn't bother me if it didn't make it the point of the book that she wanted to be a person that she wanted to be, and she wanted to do what she wanted to do, but she ended up giving up her dreams for him anyway. And that was so insufferable to me. And so I ended up giving it 1.75 stars because it also takes place in my church, and I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So it has some of that doctrine in here, but it's used wrong. Used completely wrong. Don't read this book and think that this represents my church, because it doesn't. It really doesn't. It is used so badly in this book. Like, I don't like it. I'm gonna keep it because Sam is my boyfriend's name and I collect books with his name. But I hate that series. I hate that series. I see why he's a popular author, but I hate that series. And yay, we're done. That was so many books, actually. I think it was so many books because I read the Unselected Journals of Mem Lion, and that took up like most of the books. Also, really quickly, I want to tell you 3 books that are on my TBR for this upcoming month for August, just because I don't think I'm gonna make a video on it, just because there's only 3 books. But I want to reread Being 16 by Ali Condi. I ended up starting it last night, and I just decided I wanted to pick it up, but also it starts in August, and that felt like a sign from heaven, honestly, that I should read this book this month because it starts in August, and I just love this book. This is a reread. I've read it quite a few times at this point, but it's by my favorite author in the entire world, Allison Brandywhite Condi. Well, one of my favorite authors. I have quite a few, but she's my favorite for actually good books. What this book is supposed to be, this is my favorite. So it takes place in my church, and it follows a girl as she kind of loses her faith, and her sister develops an eating disorder, and it follows her 16th year in life where she thinks it's going to be this amazing year, and just how it kind of subverts her expectations. And it is so good. It's such a good book. I love this book. I say it's a very important book. Even if you're not a member of my church, just it talks about eating disorders in a very good way, and it is, honestly, it's helped me a lot in my life. So I really recommend this book, and I decided I wanted to reread it. So already rereading that one. And then I also decided I wanted to read Daisy Hates this month because I am so sick of not enjoying any book that I'm reading, and I know this book is going to give me very, very deep emotions. Whether or not I love the book or not, it will give me emotions. So I need that because I'm just not feeling anything for my books, even though some of them are like a technical 5-star, because I'm like in my head, yes, this is a 5-star book, but I'm not feeling it because I'm kind of stressed out. So I want a book that's going to give me deep emotions, and this, I know this book is going to give one. So if you don't know what Daisy Hates is, good job. I'm not even gonna tell you, just good job. And then I also just picked this one up picked this book up at DI like 2 days ago, and it's called The Girls of August by Anne Rivers Siddons, and I literally picked it up because it's August and it says August on the title. This one kind of gives me like the Summer I Turned Pretty vibes though, because it's like 4 friends who would always meet on the beach until one of them dies, and then they kind of like don't really talk to each other for a while, and then they decided to meet up again a couple years later on the coast. And so it's giving me The Summer I Turned Pretty. It's giving me what's that series I just watched? It's also on Amazon Prime, and it was not a good series. I don't remember what it's called, but it's kind of giving me like coastal, summer, and obviously August. So that's on my August TBR also. And I think I'll probably add more books to my August TBR as I come across them, because I'm kind of doing that now, where if there's a book that I want to read, I'm just kind of being like, all right, I'm gonna write this down as a book I want to read this month for my TBR, just as I'm going. Just, it gives me less stress, basically. So this is the 3 that I for sure want to read this month, but I'll probably add a couple more onto there. I know there's a couple books I want to read on my Kindle, but I just need more Emma M. Lyon, and anything I try to read on my Kindle isn't Emma M. Lyon, and it's making me actually hurt in my soul. So anyway, that's why I haven't picked up any more books on my Kindle yet since I finished that series. This is all the books I read this month. Let's see if I can pick them up. They're kind of going everywhere. All right, here's our very imposing stack of books that I managed to all finish in this month. Can I even show you on the screen? Okay, there we go. That's all the books that I've read this month. It's so many physically, but it's because, oh yeah, I told you why I have the physical copies. I did read Emma M. Lyon on my Kindle, but then I told my mom that it's amazing, and I have the first book. It got slipped under my door like earlier, I think in like December, and I don't know who gave it to me. I still don't know. I asked around and no one's told me, and I have the first book, and so I read it and it was so good, and I checked out the second and the third one from the library, and then I binged the rest of them on Kindle. And I told my mom that they were really good, and she's like, she read the first one and then she's like, these are so good, and so she went and bought the rest of the series, and then she gave it to me because she's wonderful. So now I have the whole series, and my mom's read the series and she loves the series, and now I'm gonna make my sister read the series and she's gonna love the series, and if she doesn't, then she's not my sister. So I'm kidding, I love her anyway, but I do think she'll love the series. So anyway, it has been a good month, even though it's been a month. But I will see you in my next video. I have a vlog that I'm in the middle of it right now. That's the next video I have. I don't know when it's gonna come out, but anyway, I will see y'all in my next video at some point, who knows when, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Bye.